Greetings, students, and welcome back to the classroom, specifically our after-school podcast where we talk about all things gaming and our favorite things happening in the industry and the world, really. Basically every week at this point. I like talking about stuff. Not only because I like the sound of my own voice, mind you, thank you webcam, but also because I like vocalizing my thoughts a lot, because sometimes the best way to get your thoughts organized and cleared out is to just say them out loud and tell them to another person and get their feedback. And then, that's how you learn stuff, and that's how debates and discussions happen. It's a shame nobody does it as much anymore. It's a lot easier to, dunk with a couple lines of text nowadays. Anyway, greetings everybody. Hello. Welcome to the podcast, Hunter. Fair weather to you. Yes, indeed, it is snowing, so I guess that greeting doesn't really work. I should say, cool weather. Oh, that's embarrassing. Anyway, this will be a discussion on, as you can see by the thumbnail, esports, because this was brought up last week by, I believe it was Pokemaster, and I just thought this is such a fascinating topic to talk about, because the Game Awards have all these categories for esports, right? Because they want to officially recognize the professional aspect of the gaming scene, and the best player, the best coach, the best team, the best event, and that's good because the more mainstream and professional and kind of valid, I suppose, legitimate the scene is, the more recognized it is, the more recognition it gets, the more famous it gets, the more people that join, the bigger the industry grows, and yada yada yada. But we were talking about it, and it's strange, despite the fact that esports is probably the most successful it's ever been, I don't really think esports is actually in a good spot right now, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. You've been bedridden the whole day? Oh, I'm sorry, man. Yeah, you were talking about feeling not so good yesterday too, I think. Hopefully you feel better. Hopefully the sound of my voice is a soothing medicinal effect. If not, just let me know and I'll switch to a British accent. I hear that's great for healing things. Whew! Okay. So, the first thing I want to start with is a precursor. First off, I don't watch esports. That's very indicative of kind of where it is in relation to me. I'm a casual I'm a casual gamer in terms of I don't play competitively. I just want to play as many games as I can. I want to experience stories and fun times, but I've been a gamer my whole life. So it's very interesting that someone who is like, bleeds gaming RGB colors doesn't really care about esports all that much. And I think that's actually true for a lot of people. You have to be in a different kind of mindset for gaming when it comes to esports. And the reason for that, I think, is that it's actually so separated from, regular gaming. And I wanted to talk about why that is. Off topic, but when I started voice training, I started talking in a British accent because it's easier to keep the feminine voice like that. Really? The British voice helped out with that? Interesting. I mean, I guess any training would help, right? Because it helped, the more practice you have, the better. But interesting that British, it was the one that helped you the most. Fascinating stuff. Maybe the British accent is just like the accent, like the one we were always meant to have, and it's just always better to go back to that. better to source, right? But all the best villains are British. Not all the best heroes are British, though. It depends. British heroes tend to be also very comedic. But sorry, we're getting off topic. So let's give a an idea of where esports is right now, and then we'll go from there. For those of you who don't know, Hunter, I believe you're one such case, there is a very big scene in which gamers join organizations, professional esports teams, such as FaZe, Furia, Pain Gaming. There's a lot of them. And basically their idea is, we're going to put players on our team that are professionals at this particular game. We'll have a League of Legends team, we'll have a Valorant team, we'll have someone who specializes in Overwatch, in Halo, maybe even, in fighting games. And the idea is that these teams will be like the same as professional sports teams. Oh, my headphone just died. Hold on. I don't think it was charging. I love JBL headphones, by the way. They're the best headphones I've ever had. All my other ones suck in terms of battery life and connection. But the one weakness to JBL headphones is that they're so big that sometimes they don't fit in the charger case, so they're not actually charging. Just a tad annoying, but anyway. But esports is not just about the big leagues, right? Not just about the big arena games like League of Legends and Valorant and Dota 2. It's also about the professional competitions for every game out there. Like, there are Halo leagues, there are fighting games. Every fighting game has its own competitive scene, that it's like its own league. Overwatch made their own league before it imploded. And hell, every game out there that has a community basically has its own competitive scene. And not to mention that a lot of games have competition built right into the game. Like Super Smash Bros. Has the whole brawl score thing, or whatever it's called. The more points you have, the higher ranked you are in the world. Any multiplayer game at this point. Fortnite, Fall Guys even would have a competitive scene, because wherever there's competition, there is a desire to be the best at it, which is natural. We're humans. We're funny like that. And the more popular the game is, and the better the competitive scene, the bigger that kind of thing rises to the surface. And for a long time, the only way you saw that was to be engaged in it personally, was to say, go to those events and, do the regional tournaments, and then the local tournaments, and then you do the states, and then the internationals, and then the world championships. And the people would have to do it themselves. People would have to organize these events on their own as part of their own communities to make these things happen. And for a long time, that was how video games did any sort of competition. And it was pretty good, but the result of that is that it never really rose higher than their own personal communities. There were some that were more respected than others. I think Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, for instance, have always been really respected competitive scenes. Evo has been going on forever. That's where every fighting game eventually, goes to be like, this is the world champion of this game at this time. And that's a huge deal. Eventually these things conglomerated together and finally started making like actual professional organizations whose main focus was, let's do these fighting game competitions. And man, Evo is such a fun event. If you guys have never watched Evo matches or the stories of Evo, I highly recommend watching a couple of videos. There's a great documentary on the history of Evo. Great event. And it's grassroots born. It comes from people who have been playing Street Fighter since the first one, before it blew up. And now it includes basically every fighting game on the planet. Blaze Blue, Guilty Gear, the Samurai Shonen, was dead for a long time, and then the remake came out, and now that has a fighting scene. Dragon Ball FighterZ has its own professionals. Like, that's the thing about games. Wherever there is a video game with rankings and competition, you will find the best at them at some point. Then came the turn of the millennium. I'd say roughly, it roughly was around the time League of Legends came out. I think a lot of people can identify this game was the turning point of the esports scene. Not Smash, that we hate Nintendo. See, okay, yeah. Sidebar. That's the thing about these events. The actual video game companies that made them, most of the time, weren't actually involved in these events. Because there was no need to a lot of the time, but whenever they did, it was always appreciated. Because it's like, oh, we recognize that the community loves our game this much. Let's help sponsor an official, Street Fighter tournament. And Capcom and now NetherRealm Studios, they have wonderful relationships with their communities because they know that their game thrives on it. It's built by these communities. Fighting games in particular have to be very connected to their communities. And that's why EVO works so well. And then you go outside of that, and there are exceptions. Nintendo is like anti-competition. It's the strangest thing. Nintendo, for some reason, has never officially supported any Super Smash Bros. Tournaments. While they have dabbled in it in the past, like for instance, Reggie one time fought, Zero, as a promotional event. That did not go well, by the way, because Zero was a complete jerk during that event and tried to badmouth Reggie, and everyone on the planet loves Reggie. It's like, yeah, you suck at Smash, man. And, that's like, really? Why would you say that, man? They're reaching their arms out for the company to embrace the fighting community, and you shame him like that? Reggie came back with, well, you try running an international gaming company. But, that's a whole bad blood thing. Very specific. And it's just, Nintendo's never really had a good relationship. They've actually canceled events, sent cease and desists, because they don't want people messing with their game. You want to play it? Absolutely. You cannot use software, however, to make the competition easier. Because one of the big things about older games is that you need emulators to continue using them, because the older software and hardware, degrades over time. And people need these mods. Plus, it helps with networking. Oh my God, how do you network an online tournament without using additional software, right? But the problem with that is that it interferes with the copyright, the warranty, you're altering Nintendo's property, so to speak. And they don't like that. So whenever they catch wind of it, they shut it down. But in doing so, they directly attack their communities. So, not every gaming company knows how to work with this stuff, and Nintendo is way too protective. Let's see. Epic. Yes, Epic is one of those on the negative side companies. Because Epic is simultaneously trying to lasso the biggest game in the world and trying to keep that momentum going for as long as possible, while trying to simultaneously expand to every conceivable moneymaker they possibly can, and try to make, a competitive scene out of the most popular game in the world. And to a degree, they have succeeded. There are Fortnite championships, there are team matches, there are players who make their livelihoods off of it. But after the first Fortnite World Tournament, it's never really risen to the same level. Because Epic has a very unbalanced game. And we were talking about this in the Discord earlier, that the rapidity of Epic's updates and then all the new stuff they're throwing at the game, it's impossible to really become a competitive master at the game unless you're playing it every week, every day. And that's true for a lot of games, but here's the thing. If you're trying to master Mortal Kombat, besides the occasional hot patches and fixes, all you have to do is learn how to play and master characters, learn the characters, and you can just get better and better. You can hone your craft. But when Fortnite is throwing in new guns, weapons, features, characters, new mechanics all the time, how could you possibly make that into a competitive scene? Because you have to relearn everything with every update and new change, which happens so frequently. And not to mention, Epic Games is not in a good relationship with their community as a whole because they have so many controversies. Skin! Sorry, I went off and I didn't even say hi. Yes, it's been a while. Greetings. Just to as a clarification, we are talking about the esports scene and what is the actual position the scene as a whole is in, and we branched off into which companies support competitive gaming to begin with. Get your bottle now with free Professor Phoenix sticker at, I don't know, some random merch store. It was kind of like that at VGC Worlds. Nintendo make like a new meta 2 weeks before the World Finals made everyone angry. Yeah, see, that's another big thing. Timing. If you change your game fundamentally enough, you throw everything out the window. And that's not fun for people. For people who are trying to be competitive, who make their livelihoods off of it, or just care a lot about the game, this is disruptive. It's really uncool, really. But then you have to balance that with, oh well, but Epic has been providing more content than every other game company out there, technically. It's like, yeah, but at what cost? But that's a whole nother thing. We won't get into that. It's gone to hell, indeed. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Back to where we were going. Right. The dawn of esports as we know them today. It really did start with like League of Legends. But Dota 2, I think, should get all the credit for being like the first true esport game, right? Because most competitive scenes were isolated from each other. Halo had nothing to do with Street Fighter. Street Fighter had nothing to do with StarCraft. And Command and Conquer had their own scene. All of these scenes were individual. Their own little bubbles. No need to integrate with others. But once one of these games became big enough to be like the game everyone wanted to see people play competitively, then suddenly ideas started to float. What if we started filling arenas with people to watch these competitions take place? And Dota 2 was already a magnificently popular game, and then League of Legends came out, and it became one of the most popular games ever overnight, and it became like the team game to play for everybody. And suddenly, esports had their flagship to go by. And with Dota 2, and I think a little bit of Counter-Strike at the time, I don't remember when CSGO came out. Maybe not at the beginning. Yeah, who were the main ones at the start? I think Overwatch. No, I wouldn't say Overwatch. Let's see. Maybe I'm thinking too much about it. Valorant wasn't out at the beginning. Yeah, it's really just Dota 2 and League of Legends were like and StarCraft 2, of course. Those were the games that kind of pushed them into, we can fill these arenas and have these people watch these games live, and they're selling out. We can sell events to this. Holy crap, we can make these like sporting events. And that's where esports really started to grab onto the scene that we kind of see now. It metamorphosized into this its own beast. It started absorbing other game competition scenes into their own. And suddenly everyone wanted to be a part of it. It's like, oh my god, it's finally happening. We're finally seeing video games go to legitimacy, right? They're finally going to be like football and soccer and baseball and basketball. We're going to see esports become a thing. And granted, it was rising very quickly, and it has made some mainstream success. But it did not break through. There was actually a lot of backlash to those first years of esports success. Like the first time a League of Legends tournament was ever broadcasted on ESPN, thousands of people called in saying, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you broadcasting this on a sports channel? It's not sports." And, you know, there was, because of that lashing out, and because it wasn't as successful as they hoped, ESPN has struggled with working with esports ever since. So there's your first blockade. It's not mainstream accepted yet. Second problem, trying to absorb other game fighting scenes and making it all into one thing requires something. It requires teams to hire people permanently as, you know, this is our League of Legends team. Here's our backups. Here's our Dota team. Here are their backups. Here's our professional StarCraft player. Here's our professional Halo player. You know, teams started organizing around the idea of, we're going to make teams that play across all these games. But hiring these people and keeping them on full time was expensive. Not to mention, it wasn't really done right. I don't know how else to put this. It always felt like they were depending entirely off of the games themselves to decide who was the best. You know, there's no built-in system for this, right? Only the games can show, oh, you know, the top 100 ranked people are out there. Let's pick out which person we want on our team, right? And suddenly there was dozens of teams. I mean, look at what FaZe looked like at the beginning. They had so many people in FaZe. And then it became oversaturated. There was too many people trying to do esports, and every esports was still trying to do its own thing. And then, of course, the third problem, the games that were actually flagshipping the program were extremely toxic. There's no question that League of Legends and Dota 2, to a lesser degree, are notoriously some of the most toxic games in the entire industry, because they are games that are almost custom built to encourage that type of behavior. So it's not the environment people want to go into, and it's not the type of environment that gamers are proud of to represent them. And, you know, I don't know much about Dota 2, so if it actually isn't toxic, that's good. Lovely. That's good. But yeah, League of Legends for sure has always had this problem, and it's never really been addressed, because it's a game that focuses on making the right decisions, always being in the right place, building the right setup, balance on a team, not making mistakes, and that can snowball so very quickly, and it's so hard to come back from, and it takes so long. Every match takes so long that every fight, every match is a commitment. So when things go wrong, the bile starts to fly. But despite all this, esports rises, a bubble is created, and suddenly everyone is jumping on board, everyone's having a great time. Esports is in its heyday, so to speak. But now that we are in the 2020s, we're starting to see where the big flaws of the scene are really starting to shine through. We've had over a decade of good esports content, so to speak, and I cannot tell you one single event that mattered to me outside of EVO. I've never watched a Dota tournament. I've never watched a Valorant tournament. I watched one League of Legends tournament, and honestly, I was kind of bored. Because the thing about League of Legends is that you have to know every detail. You have to know how the game is played to understand, you know, oh, that guy just got jumped, but he survived. Why did he survive? I don't quite understand. It's a very hard game to follow. Not like other games. Baseball, it's easy to follow. Guy throws the ball, you hit it, they're trying to get around a base. Basketball, get the ball in the hoop. No traveling, right? Football, maybe a bit more complicated, but yeah, get the ball in the end zone. You know, a bit more nuance to it than that. Soccer, simple as it gets, kick it into the other side, can't use your hands. You know, there are definitely rules to each of these, but they're easy to follow. And people love sports. They are obsessed with sports. Why haven't we seen the same thing happen with esports? Pokemaster just put it perfectly, because the barrier to watch is so much higher. You have to first know video games. You have to know the video game that's being played. You have to understand how it's played. You have to be in the community itself to know when these tournaments are happening. It's like, you know, there are seasons to these games, but they're all different from each other, which is so frustrating. And one of the biggest problems that esports has is that there's too many. This is something I have said so many times. There are too many games to follow. It's impossible, because there's so many different games out there. Look at Super Smash Bros. Alone. There's the original, which doesn't have as big of a scene, but it's still there. Melee, which is the biggest Smash Bros. Scene, and it's one of the oldest ones. Brawl, Wii U, and now Ultimate. And each of them has their own competitive scene, their own tournaments. They usually happen at the same time. But you have to follow each one of these and know the differences between them to understand what the hell is going on. And then there's all the other games. There's dozens of games that come out every year that are esports capable. So how the hell are you supposed to follow them all? Because with baseball and basketball and football and soccer, the main sports, one of the advantages that they have is that you can watch one of the games and still have an idea of how everyone else in the league is doing, right? And there's only 4 or 5 big sports out there that you really follow. It's those 5, right? It's hockey, it's football, it's basketball, it's soccer, and baseball. And of course, you could follow the underleagues, you could follow college football, college sports, and all that other stuff, but for the most part, it's just those key 5 with additionals outside of that. With esports, you have to follow like a dozen different games with dozens of different team members, and that's just one season. Then you go into the next round of a dozen teams. At this point, it's ballooned to almost 100 different games that you could follow. So you have to cut some out. You only go after the ones you care about. But the only ones that are promoted and get the professional feel, the big arenas, are the most popular ones. And even that still numbers in the dozens, which makes it so much harder. It's crazy. So yeah, let's take. You guys have been saying a bunch, so I'll step in. I'll start reading these. Yes, the CS2 debacle, the nightmare. Like, it's insane what's happening to Counter-Strike 2. Oh. Yeah, okay, so yeah, I'll summarize what Bunny's saying. 2004, Valve released Counter-Strike. People were divided on it. Created kind of a divide in there. And eventually we got up to CSGO, which became one of the biggest games in the world, one of the biggest esports game. That went for a couple, like a decade, I think. And then recently they released Counter-Strike 2, which essentially replaced CSGO and was a worse product overall, removing the game from Steam. It's not, CSGO isn't on Steam anymore. It's Counter-Strike 2. It's buggier. It's worse. Right, OG was 1999. I'm thinking the wrong one. But yeah, now everyone who ever played CS:GO, sorry, game's gone. It's a completely different game now. But we just call it Counter-Strike 2 and pretend it's the same game. But it's not. It's not. Overwatch 2, same thing. Overwatch is one of the biggest esports games and games in the world. And then they replace it with Overwatch 2, remove the previous one entirely, and now Overwatch 2 is a dying game with just a few diehard fans still playing alongside. Esports scene is basically dead. Overwatch League is dead. Two different approaches. Yeah, I agree. But similar situations. It's crazy. So many of these games are handicapping themselves. Dota, League, Overwatch, Counter-Strike. The only one that hasn't shot themselves in the foot so far is Valorant. And trust me, there is plenty of controversy around Valorant and Riot Games as a whole, which, by the way, is a garbage company and should not have the success that they have. So this is why the situation we are in is in. Why we're in the situation we're in. Sorry, let me read a few more. Esports has a lot more cheating opportunity. That's well, yes. Okay, I will say yes, because sure, in professional matches they have the testing, everyone's watching, etc. But the rankings, oh my god, there are people who make their livelihoods off of boosting other people's accounts. There will be players who are like world-class professionals who will sell their services, play on other people's accounts, and boost their rankings so that they get into like the top 1,000 or whatever, there's certain leagues that everything has. There's a whole industry around this type of crap. And it's so unlike every other competitive scene I've seen. Because how the hell are you supposed to, defend against stuff like that? 1/20th the content of CSGO? Yeah, it is exactly 5% as good as the original. Watching a fighting game or StarCraft is much easier because everything has a clean health bar or resources to track. Yes, man, that's so true. I mean, yeah, there are iconic rivalries between like the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, the Yankees and the Red Sox, and et cetera, et cetera. You don't get that in esports. Like, sure, there's drama, there's players who don't like each other, but does anyone know an iconic rivalry? Can you name one off the top of your head? No. I could name several fighting game rivalries because you're just tracking the one person. Dream versus Technoblade. Oh my god, I can't believe Minecraft entered the discussion. Oh my god. There's always going to be ladder drama. Yeah, you're right. And that's the problem with like ranking systems. Like with sports has a system of filtering to the top, right? Every level you go to, you're getting filtered. The best players rise to the top, and then you get fewer and fewer each level, and then you can do the draft, and then you're at the professional levels, and then you have leagues below that. But esports doesn't have that type of thing. It doesn't have a filter besides its own personal rankings, which can be abused, and is not always indicative of the true level of skill you're dealing with. But, that's its own thing. That's like, it's like trying, how do you really identify talent? We won't get too much into that. CS2 will not be the death of the series like Overwatch 2 was. That's true. That is a distinct difference. CS2, at the very least, is still manageable. It's a shame that it happened, but it's still going on, right? Overwatch 2 is a disaster. It's broken the trust of the community. Broken promises, not delivering stuff. You destroyed something great to deliver something mediocre and didn't even provide the thing that you were breaking it down for. No story missions. Which, Overwatch 2 has been completely poison to the franchise as a whole. Just a moment. I got a lot of Code Red to drink. I'm not gonna wait anymore. Whew. there's less player drama in 1v1. That's so true. Like, people talk about dramas of, oh, these players have been dropped from like FaZe Clan and there's beef between teammates because there's so much money and reputation on the line, and the filter for getting into these is so much lower. But when it comes to 1v1 tournaments, there's one way to get in. You win. If you practice and you show up to these events and you win, you're going to the top. But it's not the same in League of Legends and Dota. You have to be drafted to these teams. They have to pick you. You can win and rank yourself up high, but you have to be part of a team to be included in these things. You have to be chosen by somebody. And that creates a barrier where people are trying to one-up each other. They're trying to backstab each other. They're trying to make themselves prettier than everyone else, right? It's a reality show BS. Because, you know, most sports drafts, they're just looking at the stats. They're looking at, okay, these players are this good, this good, this good. But when it comes to esports, it's so much harder to, you know, quantify how good is this player. So it becomes that much more dramatic, which creates so much more drama, you know, like you said. And team-based esports as a whole is already hard to follow. You know, when I look at a stage and I see two teams of 5 fighting each other, you know, heads in their computers, there's a barrier there. You know, this is probably just a me thing, but video games and esports are already very hard enough to follow the individual and support them. Like, Faker is probably the only esports name I know. And that's like because he's like at the top, right? Besides that, I don't know anyone else. I don't know teams. I don't know big moments. I've watched compilations and highlights, and it all just kind of goes over my head. Who is Faker? And see, yeah, there you go. Even that's not enough, right? And there's an international thing. Esports has to pull from international audiences to stand a chance of having the same level of audience. You have to do South Korea, China, with all of its barriers already put in place. South America, North America, Europe. Holy moly. I mean, granted, I'm in America, so the sports scene here is very passionate and organized. But that's true in Europe too, right? But we're spoiled. We have a lot of different sports, and they're all very easy to follow, and they each have their own networks and, you know, deals with the companies. They're everywhere, right? And they're represented by the cities that they're in. But FaZe Clan, they don't have a city. They're represented by their players, so it's a lot harder to think of yourself as a Team FaZe player, because what really is there to include you? What's your tribe when you join up with FaZe Clan? Just FaZe Clan and the players. But with fighting games, man, people will follow some of those people forever. For instance, I will always be a fan of Sonic Fox. He is so much fun to watch. He's a great personality, and he's so good at what he does. But he's not the only one. You know, Smash Brothers has dozens of people. Street Fighter, Daigo, let's see, Hungry Box, although he has some other problems, but for a while, Hungry Box. Zero, bit more controversial, but you know him, and so many other players that you can just get a fan following for, kind of like live streamers. You follow the person and they become significant to you because they are that person. Can't do that with these sports teams, at least not to the same degree. Woo. And here's the other thing. If you spread yourself too thin, how are you supposed to cover everything possible? Like, imagine there was an organization that tried to create a team made of players that could do all 5 sports. These are our hockey players, these are our basketball players, these are our football players. That would never work. It wouldn't work. It's like, yeah, the New York sports team, just the generic, these are all the we have a team that plays every sport. Oh, but it's not New York. It's the Cloud9 sports team. Already you have shot yourself in the foot twice, because now you don't have a center for your team. You have spread yourself too thin. Doesn't work. And that's kind of what the situation esports is in. And now we're starting to see the effects of that. Granted, esports has technically been rising for a while, but that's just because participation rises every year, not necessarily because the industry as a whole is growing. All right, let's focus through these a little bit. Competitive Pokemon on Smogon actually does the competitive scene greatly. Everyone's playing on a team, but the game is still 1v1, and there's so much team drama. It's lovely. You have to sell yourself and get drafted on teams of players have points assigned to them. Oh my god, that's right. A point system? Boy. Forts is a really good esports game. Yeah, I think some games do have an advantage because they're smaller, so they're easier to kind of work with, right? And Forts has been surviving for such a long time. And I think the esports scene is one of the biggest reasons for that. If you can call it esports, you know, I mean, they're all just competitive gaming, right, at this point. HBox is the Dale Earnhardt of Smash. By far the most accomplished, but the career comes crashing at the peak. For Earnhardt, it was him literally dying, RIP. And for HBox, it's him being a lazy content creator. Yeah, he fell off pretty hard, didn't he? But he did have some good moments while it lasted. Esports has always been rising and growing. I think that statement is wrong. Okay, you're right. I said that I said that from the hip. Let's check the stats and see how the growth has been going. Esports stats. Because yeah, I did shoot from the hip there. So let's be sure and see how it's been how it's going. So like, how would we do this? Okay. Year by year. 6.4 million views. Oh, yeah. Okay. The total market value of the esports industry is $1.6 billion. Ooh, fun. US has overtaken China as the most valuable. Prize pools have been raising every year for Dota 2 since its inception. Oh, fuck. Oh, that's it. There's proof right there. Okay. That's a lot of value. In 2019, the esports global market was valued at $957.5 million. It's increased by 70% over the last 4 years. Okay, so I definitely have to eat crow on this one. I was wrong. That's proven growth right there. Sponsorship, that's a big one. Sponsorships make up 60% of total revenue. That makes a lot of sense. Media rights. See, that's the thing. A lot of sports survive on their media rights. Like Fox and NBC will pay through the nose to host, football and baseball on their channel. There's always a bidding war for who's going to host the Super Bowl and Thanksgiving and all those big stuff. So media rights is a huge payday for very valuable things, but esports isn't quite to that same level. But, it's still the second biggest one. Media rights, 192 million. So definitely not as up there as sponsorships. I hope that's been growing. Your fighter did 1,500 damage. Dude, your team is ridiculous, Soup. Just let me say. Forts esports is definitely on the rise, mostly because of the success of casting and the controlled trickle of new game content. Indeed, and so long as you get new content and it's supported, it should grow over time, right? Okay, so I was definitely wrong on this point. My bad. I'd love to see it year by year. You know, that would have to be... $70%. Okay, so it was almost $1 billion 4 years ago, and now it's well over $1 billion now. Okay, cool. So let me rephrase my statement. It's still growing, which is good. That's always a good thing. You want these type of things to expand as much as possible. Let's see. What's a good way to put my feeling? Oh, that's true. Media rights doesn't really apply to esports, does it? Because you're not going to air, you know, League of Legends tournament on NBC, will you? So that's kind of a market share that they won't be able to tap into. That's another big obstacle, right? And that's something that they've always kind of dealt with, right? That mainstream, what's the word? Ignorance of gaming as a whole. You know, the turn your nose up, that sort of thing. It's like the scoffing. It's like, oh, you play video games professionally? I mean, that obviously that's a lot better than it was years ago, but I still think people find it very difficult to understand that esports is a thing and that it could be mainstream, but it's not mainstream yet. It hasn't crossed over yet. Video games have, I think, gotten to mainstream. I think they have, but they're still not at the same level of respect that, you know, movies and TV get. You know, the legitimacy isn't there, which is ridiculous because it's the most profitable by far, but whatever, I know. Cable TV's falling off, yeah, absolutely. Most of the competitive players have snarky language-based jokes in their name, and the game's audience is made shorty European. Yeah, gamer identification. Yeah, I'm just going to name myself FU for my gaming career. That'll really work. Streaming rights, right, and that's growing. Right? Because imagine if Netflix became like the host of certain events, like, or Hulu, or God help us, Disney Plus. You know, that's where the next, you know, market's going to go, and streaming platforms will start being the ones that, you know, start taking that over. I think some of them have already done that. I think Netflix did that a little bit. I think Amazon Prime did as well, but I may be mistaken. Right, back to my original thought. I think the reputation of esports has fallen over time, which is not surprising considering the games that make up esports, the makeup of them haven't really changed. Valorant is like the biggest new dog on the block, right? It's always been League, it's always been Dota, CSGO has been around for a while, now it's Counter-Strike 2. Overwatch has kind of come and went. StarCraft is kind of always in there, and fighting games will always be there, but they're really their own thing. They're like the 1v1 gaming esports thing. They'll always have a monopoly on that. But man, no big player has come in the last decade or so besides Valorant that's really shaken things up. And they're all the same. They're all this. Why are they all MOBAs? I don't get it. Why are they all team-based death matches? Where are the racing, you know, games? Where are the sim games? The strategy games? They're just not as popular. Now, I'll never understand how MOBAs became the big dogs on the block. Big dogs on the block. I just don't get it. Right. Trackmania and Rocket League, obvious examples. They have their own professional leagues. But they're not on the same level as the others. Why aren't they, though? I don't... Like... I'm just trying to put my thoughts into a sentence. It doesn't make sense why the most popular esports games are the ones that are. I don't get it. I honestly don't. Why is it that League of Legends and other MOBA type team-based deathmatches are the most popular games? Counter-Strike, I absolutely get. FPSs are incredibly popular. Pushing that to its extreme. Absolutely. That's the peak of gaming competition. But are MOBAs really the best version of esports that we have? Are they really the most popular team-based games in our industry? Like, how did that happen? Because if you think about quality team multiplayer games, what do you think of? Let's see, let's come up with a few. Biggest prize pools, but right, but that's an indication of why it's so popular, so it has the biggest prize pools. But why is it the most popular? Why are MOBA games so enticing for this type of environment? RTS games are hard to follow, so that one I understand. Racing does take a backseat to actual sports. Let me think about it. Because this is something I've always kind of never understood about the esports scene. Because it's always the same type of game that reaches the pinnacle, right? It's StarCraft, it's Dota 2, it's League of Legends, it's Valorant, it's Overwatch, it's team-based deathmatches. Why are those the best? Why are those the prime esports cream of the crop, so to speak? Like fighting games, obviously, that makes sense. It's competition, it's 1v1, it's fighting. Made for this type of environment. But why MOBAs? Why choosing different champions and different stats and controlling a thing? Let me think about that for a second. Because I think I'm having a trouble articulating what I'm trying to say, right? RTS is easy to follow. You see the big armies, they fight and one wins. True, but there are a lot of details like resource management, strategies. But yeah, I've never had trouble following RTS games. I think people really just like the team drama. For single player, you have the FGC branching off and having Evo. There you go. I think MOBAs have the advantage that the footballs do. You can't always blame one person. Okay, let's analyze that. So in football, when your team loses, like the Broncos just lost to, I believe it was the Chiefs. Can I blame one person? No, I have to blame the whole team. The quarterback's not doing his job. The offensive line's not doing his job. But when you win, seeing the whole thing kind of gel as a machine, it's like, oh yeah, that felt good. That pass felt good. That run felt good. It's a constant feedback of satisfaction and strategy and athletic accomplishment. Baseball, it's that showdown between the pitcher and the batter. Every at plate is a tense showdown. It's a duel, right? And when you hit the ball, then it's the scramble to react to it and do something about it. And every player has to step up to the plate and make their thing. Basketball, you got to make the shots. You got to somehow get past the defenders. And every other sport. For MOBAs, I have to admit, MOBAs are kind of similar when it comes to that idea of there's so many different ways to do it, and when it works, it feels great. Like when you see someone ambush someone in a bush and just destroy them, that's a great feeling. But it's not the end of the game. Now we go to the next moment. It builds that momentum, right? Tower goes down. Oh, the next chapter has started. The game's getting closer to finish. And then there's the arguments of, well, Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. Tom Brady is a greater thrower, but Peyton's a better player. He's just he's smarter. It's like, okay, but Twitch is a better stealth champion. He's so much better at ambushing. But I would pick Olaf any day for tanking, right? So maybe that is it. Maybe it's the idea of everything like an orchestra of all the things coming together to make a success. Like a story is unfolding. Maybe that's it. The most interesting competitions are ones that have satisfying arcs, right? Because you're not just going in for highlights. You want to watch the dance. That's what I've been saying. People like watching the team dynamics. You're right. Are we back? I have green. Yay! Okay, sorry. Yes, as you were saying. Yes, beautiful. Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, team dynamics. There is something majestic about seeing a whole team come together to do something more than one person can. Because yeah, watching a one-on-one competition is very exciting. Seeing them pull off amazing maneuvers and tactics, that's great. But when you amplify it with a team, I think it feels more satisfying. Like watching a whole team drive down the field on a football field when you're down 7 and everybody's got to do their part. Everyone's got to do the tackles. There's a struggle at every moment. As a team, it feels more satisfying than with just an individual. It's still satisfying with the individual, as fighting games have proven, but as a team, I think it amplifies that feeling. And I think that's why it's so popular. So, naturally, the games that were the most popular team-based competitive games rose to the top. League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Dota 2, because they were the best version of gaming team-based competition that we had at the time, and they've just ballooned ever since then. So, is that as far as esports will ever go? I wonder. I still feel like there is a version of an esports game that is more satisfying, more significant than what League of Legends or Dota 2 or a game like that could provide. But I don't know what it looks like, right? It's like saying, what does the best game ever look like? I don't really know. But I know that we're not in the position we need to be in. Because yes, we did grow for 4 years straight. That's good. But it's not growing very fast. 70% over 4 years, that's pretty big. That's big. But when you're trying to break through this glass ceiling, which we're already struggling with, is it really enough growth? Is it fast enough? Is it significant enough? Eventually, we'll probably cross that threshold. We have this young generation growing up with stuff like this who are so used to, watching streams and internet stuff. And this may just be my old self, not really liking watching esports because it's so new. I'm an old school gamer, so who knows? Maybe that's it. I think it comes down to watching what you like. Gaming itself is such a broad category, it's hard to bunch it all together. That's so true. And that's the wonderful thing about gaming, right? There's no end to the possibilities. And I don't like the position esports is in right now, especially with the drama and the fact that it's not as successful as it could be, it feels like. And the games that do represent us are questionable. But it's not like we're collapsing, right? We're growing. Things are getting bigger and better, and we're getting smarter about these things. And we're calling out crap like this. And eventually someone will take the reins and probably transform esports as we know it, because we are in a prime position. We're in a position to jump across this ledge to grab the ladder of success, right? We are ready to rocket launch into a whole nother world where everyone's talking about the latest, Mortal Kombat match or stuff like that. Maybe that's a dream, I don't know. But I feel like we are like one big game changing the world away from doing that. But that's probably a bit naive, maybe a bit simplistic. Yes, and they're more accountable now. They're not getting away with the BS. And when things are healthy and good, it fosters better things in the future, right? So we're not tolerating toxicity anymore. So Riot Games is forced to address it by trying to limit communication, as you said, and do something about it. And who knows? Maybe in the future, League of Legends will become the most positive game. I have no idea. So I'll wrap everything up with a couple of thoughts. I'm not really an esports guy. So when I look at the esports scene and all the troubles that it has, and the fact that it's not mainstream yet, and being cynical because people treat games as such a low-end kids idea, almost childish, it makes me jaded about the idea. But the stats don't lie, right? As you just showed, you proved me wrong. Esports has been growing ever since it started. Maybe there's been some controversies, maybe things have gone wrong, but as a whole, things have been getting better every year. And there are always new games and new players and new ways of doing these things that eventually we'll break through that threshold, and there will be nothing that anyone can do about it. Right? I mean, look at football. Football used to be such a niche sport. American football. And it wasn't until they televised a game between the Colts and I think of the Eagles. First time on television, they called it the greatest game ever played. Not because it was the greatest game ever, because it's the most significant football game ever played. Because it brought it to an audience that everyone realized, oh, this is the magic of football. And it just took off from there. But it had to be something for a while before it became that. I think esports is in the same position. We are in a solid position. There's some flaws, some cracks, but not enough to destroy the foundation. And eventually, once it starts getting broadcast to a larger audience in some way, like some platform makes that big step of saying, this is the annual esports league, and it creates a foundation for people to just make it part of their identity, to follow the news, to be a part of it. It's because it's so hard now. Break down that barrier and esports would explode. Maybe then I'll start watching, but not until then. I'll stick to my fighting games. So overall, pretty mixed bag today, I would say. I had a lot of negative things to say about esports, but at the same time, I don't have a lot to point to say that it's going downhill. It's like they're going uphill. They've just been doing it by, trampling on other things at the same time. And yeah, that's another thing. Maybe I'm thinking too broadly. Yeah, esports is so big. You're not into soccer, you're into football. You're not into league, you're into Evo. And yeah, that's another thing. Maybe it'll never be that way. Maybe esports is just too big of a thing to really have that type of representation. Maybe it'll only be one game or a handful that'll get that sort of representation. God help us, the Fortnite League. The NFL, the National Fortnite League. Oh my God. Just wait. Now on Netflix, these every Saturday. So yeah, but with a bit of a positive outlook, the next 10 years are going to be very, very interesting to watch. That's for sure. What does it even stand for? Electronic. Electronic sports. So technically, anything with electricity could be considered an esport. So electrified cage matches, wrestling matches would probably be esports too. No one will agree with me on that, but... Okay, I think we've gone long enough. We've actually talked for, holy crap, almost hour and 40 minutes here. Very dense topic to talk about. I enjoyed that thoroughly. Definitely not a topic I'm as informed on as I hoped I would be. I don't see that changing in the future anytime soon. Robot fighting esports, boy, that would be interesting to watch, wouldn't it? And yeah, it really just comes down to, what do you want to watch, right? Like, I find it so thrilling to watch speedrunning more than I do esports, right? And speedrunning is this whole other category of gaming. I've always made this comparison. If, you know, League of Legends and EVO and FGC and all those other things are the sports leagues of video gaming, speedrunning is the Olympics of speedrunning, because it's the very, very best of people at very, very specific things. Like the fastest Super Mario Brothers run, the highest score ever on Nibbler, you know, the Olympics of itself. right. It's the idea that, yeah, the athletes in the Olympics are probably better than the professional leagues, or at least at the same level, even though they're amateur, even though that's not a real statement. But yeah, it's the idea is that these are the actual best players of these games, but they're not doing it competitively. The person they're in competition with them is themselves and other players doing that very same specific thing. He's got a point. Speedrunning is the Olympics of sports. But yeah. And see, I enjoy speedrunning a lot more because it's fun to see the absolute peak of performance. And maybe if I saw esports that way, I enjoy it a little more. And it's easier to see that with fighting games, which is why I enjoy those more. So maybe if I just see those esports games as this is the peak of League of Legends, the top of their play, I might enjoy it a little more. But in any case, I think we've talked about this long enough. I think you guys want to play a few games today. Well, let's play one game today. Well, we'll play it for a very long time. We are going to go ahead and switch over to Pokemon Emerald. And basically, we're just going to play as long as I want today. I don't have a goal in mind. I don't have a set time in mind. I've got all night, so let's just go for it. So I'll start setting up. Lovely. And thank you all for all of your opinions. It's much appreciated. Like it was said at the very beginning, I think everyone has different opinions on this, especially me being more cynical about esports, and a few of you who are more positive about esports. But there are certain things we can all agree upon, and it's good that I learned as much as I can, because I was under the impression that it was actually going downhill in terms of numbers, but that's clearly not right. So there you go. Perspective shifted. Now, let's go ahead and play a game about capturing little creatures and making them fight each other for the next couple of hours. Sounds like fun? Sweet. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and alter the stream title. By the way, how you enjoyed my channel lo-fi that I've set up? I just picked a whole bunch of songs from some of my favorite games and just put it on random. You can probably tell Final Fantasy VII features heavily in this list. because I like other lo-fi channels. But after a while, I just kind of drown it out. I tune it out, right? Because it's not connecting with me. It's not putting me in the right mood. So I need something more specific from the games I like. So maybe I'm wrong about some things. Maybe watching pro Pokemon does have a barrier to watch. You just know too much Pokemon that I overestimate the average viewer. Yeah, that's true. And we're all coming from different parts of it, right? Like if I were to watch professional Pokemon, I don't really get it because I don't know that much about Pokemon. So I don't see it as high level as other stuff. But that's just because I don't understand it. So there's that other barrier. Like, God knows I don't watch lacrosse or cricket. Those games are like... they're like alien planets to me. Like, isn't cricket just baseball, but with more limitations? And worse? This is something I mentioned earlier about forts. Even if you have no idea about the game, it is fun to watch because of the explosions and crap. Ain't that the truth? If something's just fun to watch in general, it's always going to do well, right? Just helps. Never hurts. I've got a checklist of things to do for Pokemon. There are certain Pokemon that I want to capture, and then I want to start leveling like crazy for Pokemon because, excuse me, my last fight at the Mauville Gym, Watson, he almost destroyed me. It came down to my last Pokemon that I only managed to get the last hit in because of a lucky break. He used a move that didn't attack me. It's the only reason I won. Definitely don't want to be in that position again for the next game. So I'm going to be taking this stream to not only collect the Pokemon I'm missing, but to start doing some grinding and leveling for my mains and picking out the Pokemon that'll do a good job in the next gym early. Because I did that very late last time. So it's so satisfying picking out a nice Pokemon team. I don't even know how many Pokemon in the Emerald game I've actually captured, like what percentage. I have no idea. Because I'm still pretty early in the game. I'm only at the second batch. Watson flipping between being the easiest fight versus hardest and whether or not metric howls for... Yeah, exactly! Freaking... that fight, man. I had my Shedinja, who was immune to everything, so he couldn't be touched, except that they had the perfect ways to inflict confusion. Freaking Magnetron always, he destroyed my strategy, and then the whole electric damage thing and paralysis just making it that much harder to do damage for a Pokemon that's not very offensive. My whole strategy almost fell apart. I'm so glad I managed to beat him, but boy, was that a warning sign. I need to be better prepared. I don't even know what the next one is. I think the next one's a fire gym, fire Pokemon. So I need to start training my water Pokemon. So my Combuskin will start taking the backseat this time. I am the most knowledgeable woman on Gen 3 AI. I don't even think that's an overstatement. So true. Sometimes you just know, right? It's like everyone knows that the mill tank rollout is one of the most devastating gym leader strategies of all time. Because people were just not ready for it. You don't know until you experience it firsthand, and then it's just like... Anyway. Pokemon. Emerald. Leveling. I wonder if people even care about hashtags when it comes to games of this size. Or streams of this size, rather. But every little thing matters, right? That's why I custom built this thumbnail. One of my better ones. Pretty simple, though. Alright. I wonder what happens if I change my category midstream. What it classifies as. See, that's the problem with YouTube streams. It's the organization is terrible. But whatever. That's a YouTube thing. No wonder we're going back to Twitch. Oh, by the way, who hasn't heard yet, we're going back to Twitch. Finally. Everyone has spoken, and two things became very clear. Everyone wants to go back to Twitch, or, well, multi-streaming, really, just to do it both. And people love VTubers. So I'll become a VTuber starting immediately. Gotta figure out what to make myself look like. English, there we go. Okay. Sorry, that took a little longer than usual. Lovely. All right, let's get started, shall we? Real ones know that Clefairy is hard to beat, because who knows what Eternal will turn into. Oh, that's true. Oh, man. And see, it's weird. I played... Because that's Gen 2, right? Hold on. Yeah, Gen 2. I played Gen 2 on my Game Boy, but I don't remember this being a problem because I was way too young when I played Pokemon Silver, and the only thing I ever did was I just spammed my Typhlosion over and over again. Probably shouldn't have done that. Made the game less fun, I think. Because, you know, I was just no-braining it, using Typhlosion for every fight. I think that really took the fun out of it. Child version of me not really getting, you know, there's better ways to play this game, right? Okay. Load content. Okay, so we now know, as we've learned from our previous streams, that we do not rely on the in-game saves. They are broken for some reason. So we're just going to rely on save states entirely. So if I don't save state, remind me. Okay, application audio. I'm not hearing it. Why am I not hearing it? And then game capture. Come on, work with me. Boom. What was it, Pokemon Silver I played? Yeah, it was. Are you guys hearing anything? I'm not. Maybe I muted it. Oh, you know what? I did mute it. Yeah. Now I have to reload. Because I had to, when I was last week when I lost my save data, I had to go back through and do all the stuff that I did on stream, but I was getting annoyed, so I turned off the audio so I wouldn't have to think about it. Oh, that's right, because I was using the turbo button, which, you know, is grating, so that's why I had to do that. Load my games. Okay, hopefully that'll fix the audio. Child me playing Pokemon Sapphire thought the game just ended after beating Roxanne. Because I couldn't read, I had to go back to Mr. Briny. Oh my god, I've had situations like that before too. Let me try and recall one. Uh-oh. Crashed? Oh my god, that's right. I totally forgot. Game capture is broken when it comes to RetroArch now. Okay, so hold on. I got to do window capture. Something has gone wrong with the latest update with OBS. The game capture is actually interfering with certain games and softwares, making them not function correctly, which is like, okay, how do you make that happen? And I didn't realize it was happening last week until I turned everything off and suddenly they've started working. So hopefully I should be able to load it if I just get rid of game capture. Okay, that just burned my soul. Why did that happen? Yeah, what the hell is happening? Why is window capture so scuffed? Maybe I need to do display capture. Hold on. I really don't want to have to close OBS to get this to work. So hold on. I got to experiment a little bit. Maybe I should use desktop. No. Desktop's not the problem. Oh, God. What is happening? It's like it's not loading correctly. Oh! People in the Counter-Strike community are sobbing crybabies. Just had to take an opportunity to point that out, huh? Why did something happen recently, or it's just your experience? Let's try another emulator instead. Oh, but if I do that, I won't be able to load. Wow, why is the audio so bad? People are complaining that Valve hates the poor because Source 2 doesn't run well on their 2014 low-end computers. In reality, CS2 runs easier on modern computers than CSGO did on 2012 computers. Oh, yeah, that's a very... Sorry to anyone who has an issue with this, but that's such a specific thing to complain about. I mean, you can't complain that something that's 10 years out of date isn't compatible and then claim the company is directly attacking you and then saying, oh, well, they hate the port. Come on. No, that's dumb. Don't be dumb. Not it at all. Okay, so maybe window capture is broken too. Let's try this. 130 FPS. See, there you go. Yeah. That's all the history you need right there. Having some trouble. I really don't want to reset, but I might have to. Yeah, ever since I downloaded the new OBS version, this has been... RetroArch has just not been playing nice. Okay, let's try running as administrator. I love console wars. They're so funny. Yeah, me too. See, I've never been a real part of console wars because, you know, spoiled privilege here. I've always had all the consoles, so I never had to pick between one. And, you know, later in life, it's like, yeah, sure, PlayStation has probably more games than Xbox. Cool, but I don't really care. It's just a tribalism I don't need to take a part of. If there's a game on the Xbox I want to play, I'll buy an Xbox. But until then, I don't need to buy it because, you know, green bleed. Sorry, bleed green, you know, I don't need to do that. And then, yeah, there's a whole PC gamer master race thing. It's like, no, man. You don't have to be so negative about it, right? You don't have to be like, you know, oh, you're on a console, you're a, you know, caveman. It's like, why are you so jaded, cynical / negative about it? You're just being a jerk at that point. Yeah, there are advantages to both, and PC has a lot of them. That doesn't mean you have to dunk on people. 5,000 PC. Yeah, it's like, yeah, my PC can put your console to shame. Really? How much it cost you? 10 times the console? Okay, shut up. I'm sorry, I don't think my Xbox has the 4090 that came out last week. I just don't think it does. I don't think that's possible. Grew up with an Xbox 360 because my dad owned it. Oh, nice. Passing down family to family. Come on. Work, damn you. Okay, I don't think I can fix this without resetting OBS. So we're going to try it. Sorry to everyone. I'm going to reset stream. I'm going to open it up, make sure it's working, then launch OBS, and we'll just restart the stream. No biggie, no drama. I'll see you in a few.